I have an artificial leg. My journey started 41 years ago. I was only 18 at the time. March 19th, 1970 to be exact. And for me, it was just another day of getting up, get dressed, go down, get something to eat, and go to work. Well, we had a snowstorm that afternoon, kind of like what happened 2 weeks ago. But this time, at least I'm here to be able to tell this story. The visibility was terrible, and driving conditions were very terrible. You know, they were very extreme. And I didn't see anything, and I didn't hear anything out of the ordinary. Well, by my old neighborhood in Roseville, we have some train tracks that run through that area. And we used to play on those tracks as kids. And that afternoon, out of nowhere, a train was there, and so was I. Well, at 5:20 p.m., my whole life changed forever because I had a collision with that train, and the impact of the collision threw me out of the car onto the railroad tracks, and I was run over by a train. So I'm fortunate to be up here and be able to tell you about this. I remember the police talking to me at that time and explaining to me what had happened, and to keep talking because my body was going into shock. And when something like that happens to you, your body does go into shock. It's kind of like a protective mechanism. And I didn't feel any pain at that time, so I really didn't know what was going on until they were telling me what was happening. I woke up a while later in the ER room at the hospital. I remember coming out of shock at that point. I also remember all the pain that came along with it afterwards. I thought I was going to die. Mom and Dad came into the room that day, and they were talking with the doctors. And the doctors explained to them I had to have surgery, and that surgery required amputation of my left lower leg. If I didn't have the surgery, gangrene would set in, and amputation was the only option I really had at that point. What do? You do what you have to do, and that's what I did. I chose the amputation. You know, at 18 years old, you think you have all the answers in life, and I had my whole future planned out for myself. The Vietnam War was going on at that time. The military draft was going on at that time, and I was facing that draft. Well, instead of going overseas to Vietnam or facing any wars, I decided to enlist in the Navy. I signed up for 4 years active duty, and I wanted to be on an aircraft carrier so I could work on jets. Afterwards, making a career out of that, I would take and go into private industry or commercial airlines. Well, my plans never did happen. I ended up with an honorable discharge at that time. This accident not only took my leg, but it took my self-esteem, my confidence, my faith in God. And I was angry. I was angry at the world. My whole life was turned upside down at that point, and I didn't know what was going to happen next. For me, a new journey would start. Immediately after getting out of the hospital, I had everybody waiting on me, hand and foot, doing everything I wanted them to do. My mom put a stop to that awful quick. It's that tough love. She says, you have to learn to start doing things on your own. You have to start to try and move forward. You can't sit there and have everybody do everything for you. Well, with that in mind, I think that's some of the best therapy I could have ever asked for. And it worked out pretty good that way. One of the things I did complain about, my socks always slipped down on my artificial leg and they wouldn't stay up. My mom took a piece of Velcro and she glued it partway up on the leg. That way the socks would stay up there. But it did raise heck on the socks. It did work. You know, thanks, Mom. After leaving the hospital, in over a 2-month period at that time, I was fitted with a new artificial leg. And I remember the first day at that hospital when that first cast came off of my leg. And I was looking down at my stump. I couldn't handle it. I started shaking so bad, I had to be put in a wheelchair. I was scared. Things started to get a little easier after time. It took time and a lot of tolerance. Physically, things were moving along pretty good. I was learning how to walk on a new leg. Even the simplest tasks like walking up and down a set of stairs is different for anybody that has an artificial limb. And they understand what I went through at that point. But things were starting to get back to normal for me at that point. Because of losing that leg, the state required me to go down and retest for my driver's license. They wanted to make sure I could operate a vehicle safely and not endanger anybody else's life. And that makes sense. I think that's a good thing. So I did that. I was able to get back to work on a part-time basis, and my bosses were really great at that point. They were very compassionate and patient with me because I would get back to work for a couple hours at a time each day. And if I got sore, I'd be able to go home. And forever, how long it took to get back on a full-time basis, they were there for me at that point. Like I said, physically, things were starting to move along pretty good. Emotionally, things started to fall apart for me. I started to get an attitude of resentment. I felt like people were staring at me when I wore shorts, or I'd be on crutches. And I felt very insecure with myself as a person. My family and my friends, they never gave up on me. I was starting to give up on myself. Well, things started to change a few years later. In 1973, I met my wife, Jan. She's been with me for 37 and a half years. Well, she was a Baptist at the time, but I think I forgive her for that. We as Lutherans, we are forgiving. We moved to East Bethel in 1975, and it took a while to find a church home. And we started to raise a family, and she helped turn my life around. I've been blessed with a second chance in life, and not a lot of people get that opportunity. I've had a few challenges here and there, but I also take those challenges and try and make them a contest just to see if I can do things. I think the challenges are limitations you set in your mind. And I think anything is possible if you believe. And you won't know you can do something unless you give it a try. I've learned to believe in myself again and to believe in God. And I think my faith in God is a lot stronger now than it ever has been. My challenges that I've had to face before, like I said, are kind of like a contest. I'd just like to try things just to see if I can do them. I've gone cross-country skiing. I was with the Scouts a number of years back when my boys were growing up, and I was one of the Scout leaders. And we went to Rum River, and we were out there. It was 63 below wind chills at that time. And we did go cross-country skiing. Well, when I went to take my boot off that afternoon after we came back to the cabin, when I pulled the boot off, the front part of my foot snapped in half. So that was still sitting inside the boot. Well, I used duct tape, and I was able to put it back together until that Monday when I was able to get it repaired. I took my wife parasailing on one of our cruises that we went on, and we were 400 feet up in the air, and it was awesome up there. Like, that was just beautiful. But she's like this, we're tandem, and she's like this, white knuckle, you know, and she's hanging on. And I'm looking down at everything, and I saw a sea turtle, and I said to her, I said, look, I said, there's a sea turtle. And she, yeah, I'll believe you. I have a son-in-law that's a commercial pilot now, and he works for one of the major airlines here in the cities. While he was getting his ratings to become a commercial pilot, he was a flight instructor at that time up in St. Cloud. So after work, I would drive up to St. Cloud, meet him at the airport, and we'd go flying in the Cessnas. I'm still here, I didn't crash. I did learn how to take off with the plane and land the plane. He had me do that all on my own. My heart was going like this. I didn't realize I'd be able to do something like that. But that's one of those things you won't know unless you give it a try. Well, life has many paths it can take. I look back at one of them and I think to myself, what if this accident would never have happened? What if I would have still gone into the service, go overseas, maybe go to war, maybe even get killed? Well, you know, I think this is God's way of saying, I'm going to let you off the hook. But I'm not going to let you off that easy. You're going to have to do something for me. Well, I think that happened about two and a half years ago. Because I have a friend out here, Janine Allen, right now, that was in a bad accident. Her and her husband, Bernie, were in a real bad accident. And she lost her leg. She had it amputated. She called me an inspiration. And I was there for her. But you know, to me, that's a two-way street. Faith isn't something that grows overnight. I think it's a work in progress, and it takes a while sometimes. It took me a while. Some people might say I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, years ago, I did agree with that. If you ask me right now, and I'm telling you right now, as God is my witness, no, I think I was in the right place at the right time. It brought me here. It brought me to this church. It brought me to where I am right now. I'd like to end by saying that being up here every week has been a blessing and an honor. I'd like to thank Kim Froggatt and the Cornerstone Band, Heather Neef, and Power Up for allowing me to share my gift of music each and every week. You guys are awesome. We have a congregation, to me, that is my extended family. I know that I've been going through a lot of things lately with my family. A lot of prayers have been sent out for my family. And all of you have been terrific, and I think those prayers are being answered. I've learned to grow in faith, and I think being here has given me a chance to regain some of my strength that I've lost, and I lost a long time ago. So I end by saying thank you and God bless.